Every town has its stories. Some tell of lost treasures, others of spirits that wander through moonlit nights. But in this town, an old, half-forgotten settlement lying between rolling hills and dense forests, the story was unlike any other. It was not about gold, not about ghosts. It was about a man, a stranger, someone who appeared from nowhere and yet seemed to have been here forever. The people never agreed on when he arrived. Some claimed they had seen him years ago, moving like a shadow in the background of their daily lives. Others swore that he appeared suddenly, as if the earth itself had breathed him out one evening when the fog lay heavy over the streets. What everyone agreed upon, however, was this: once he arrived, nothing in the town was the same again. At first, he drew little attention. He lived quietly in a crumbling old room above the abandoned tavern. He bought no food, yet he was never hungry. He carried no luggage, yet he always had paper and ink. His clothing was plain, travel-worn, the kind of clothing that could belong to anyone or no one. His face was unremarkable, almost forgettable, except for his eyes. Those who looked into them described a strange sensation, as though they were being weighed, measured, and read like an open book. Soon enough, whispers began to spread, whispers of what he did at night. Children, ignoring their parents' warnings, claimed to see him under the flickering lamplight, scribbling symbols into a notebook. The symbols made no sense: lines, circles, broken words, fragments of languages no one recognized. The braver ones said they followed him to the forest's edge, where he stood among the trees as if listening to voices that belonged to the earth itself. At first, people laughed. "A madman," they said, "a drifter with nothing better to do." But laughter in small towns is often laced with fear, and soon the laughter grew thin. Stories began to change. He was not simply writing, people claimed. He was discovering. And what he was discovering was not just knowledge, not just wisdom, but a truth so deep that it could tear open the walls of reality. The rumor took on a life of its own. The butcher swore he once saw the man place his hand on a dying bird and bring it back to life, though the butcher's wife told everyone her husband had been drunk that day. The baker's son claimed the stranger had told him about a dream he hadn't shared with anyone, not even his parents. The old priest confessed in hushed tones that when the man had stepped into the church, every candle had flickered as though a storm had passed through, even though the doors were tightly shut. Most dismissed these stories as exaggerations, yet deep down, people wondered, what if it was all true? What if the stranger really had seen something hidden from the rest of the world? One evening, a boy named Elias dared to follow him. The night was quiet, the streets empty, the moon veiled behind clouds. Elias crouched behind a broken cart, peering out as the stranger opened his notebook under the dim light of a street lamp. His hand moved quickly, almost furiously, sketching symbols that glowed faintly, as though the paper itself was alive. Elias blinked hard, thinking his eyes were playing tricks, but then the air around the stranger shimmered. The cobblestones beneath his feet seemed to ripple like water. Terrified, Elias turned to run, but stopped when the man's eyes lifted. For a single moment, their gazes locked. Elias felt something pierce into him, something far beyond fear. It was as though his life, all his secrets, his dreams, his regrets, had been read in the blink of an eye. He stumbled backward, gasping, and fled. The next morning he told his family what he had seen. His parents scolded him, accused him of making up tales, but Elias swore by every star in the sky that it was true. Within days his story spread, and the whispers grew louder. By now the town was divided. Some wanted him gone, believing he had brought a curse. Others were drawn to him, believing he had found the key to something far greater than himself. Meetings were held in secret. Arguments broke out in the tavern, though the tavern itself had long been abandoned. Some spoke of confronting him directly, of demanding answers, but whenever courage swelled, it dissolved again, for no one wanted to be the one to face him. Then came the night of the storm. The sky split open with lightning, the streets flooded with rain, and through the chaos a group of men gathered their resolve and marched to his room. They banged on the door. No answer. They pushed it open. The room was empty, the bed neatly made, the walls bare. The stranger was gone. All that remained was the notebook, lying open on the desk, a single candle still burning beside it. The men approached cautiously, as though the book itself might bite. They leaned over the pages, and what they saw made their breath catch. The writing was not random. It was a map, not of land or sea, but of time. Circles intersecting with lines, spirals stretching outward, symbols looping back on themselves. At the center was an eye so detailed, so lifelike, that one of the men swore it blinked. They left in silence, carrying the notebook to the town square. By morning, everyone had seen it. Some looked only once and turned away, pale and shaken. Others stared too long, swearing they felt their hearts beating in rhythm with the drawings, swearing they felt the ground beneath them tilt ever so slightly. A few even fainted. The priest declared it blasphemy. The teacher said it was brilliance beyond human understanding. The mayor demanded it be destroyed, but no one dared to touch it. From that day forward, the stranger was never seen again. His name was never learned, his footsteps never traced, but the notebook remained, locked away in the church vault, guarded as though it were both treasure and a curse. And the rumor, oh, the rumor only grew. Parents told their children never to speak of him, yet the children did. Lovers whispered about him beneath the stars. Farmers muttered his name while sowing their fields. And in every whisper, in every voice, there was the same question. What had he discovered? What truth had he written into those pages? And why had he left it behind? The town never found its answer, but they knew, with a certainty that chilled their bones, that whatever he had seen was not meant for ordinary eyes. For secrets of that magnitude are never safe. They burn, they consume, they change everything they touch. And so the rumor remained, not just a story, not just a memory, but a shadow that stretched across generations, a warning, a mystery, and perhaps, for the boldest of hearts, an invitation. That day, the baker's son claimed the stranger had told him about a dream he hadn't shared with anyone, not even his parents. The old priest confessed in hushed tones that when the man had stepped into the church, every candle had flickered as though a storm had passed through, even though the doors were tightly shut. Most dismissed these stories as exaggerations, yet deep down, people wondered, what if it was all true? What if the stranger really had seen something hidden from the rest of the world? One evening, a boy named Elias dared to follow him. The night was quiet, the streets empty, the moon veiled behind clouds. Elias crouched behind a broken cart, peering out as the stranger opened his notebook under the dim light of